Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here on KREM 2 News at noon. I'm Laura Papetti. It is good to see you on this Tuesday. Good to head outside with our friend Thomas Patrick. Thomas, we were talking about the fog this morning. I was out walking and it was fine in some places, and next block it would just be, you couldn't even see. So things have cleared up a bit, certainly, but still cloudy and kind of crummy outside.
Yeah, I think that's a great assessment and observation for both this morning and where we stand right now. There were reports of some extremely bad fog, though only like a block or two at a time. Where we stand right now, definitely cloudy, and I'll tell you what, usually we can see Dishman Hills and Tower Hill off to my east. I cannot see the mountain and the hill crest, which is only about a mile or two in the distance here. But I don't know if I would so far as to call it foggy anymore. Yes, our fog advisories did get extended until 2 o'clock, but it doesn't really look that bad. It doesn't look like fog. It looks like super low cloud cover, but this is not really hitting our visibilities anything significantly. In fact, the only reductions at the airport and at Moses Lake are actually improvements since this morning. But yeah, just that cloud cover hanging low in the sky, and it will make a difference in terms of temperatures for the West Plains, which tend to always get the worst of the fog. And look at that difference between the airport at 43 and Coeur d'Alene at currently 50 degrees with a little bit more sunshine. So I'm not too worried about the fog for the rest of the day here. Instead, just keeping an eye on our next rain chances. Nothing on Doppler radar yet, though I will show you when it does arrive tonight. That's all coming up.
All right, my friend, thank you. Today, earlier in the morning, Post Falls police arrested a man for destroying a newly constructed home with an excavator. The house was recently sold, however, it was not occupied at the time. According to a press release, Post Falls police officers located and stopped the suspect, who is fleeing the scene in a vehicle. The driver, we're told, is Fred Kuderna, 29 years old, was arrested for DUI and malicious injury to property. So far, we know from the ongoing investigation that Kuderna lives a transient lifestyle and works in construction. There is no known motive at this point. Eastbound I-90 fully open, and westbound I-90 has now reopened one lane near Ritzville. Earlier today, all westbound lanes were closed due to a crash that happened in that area. WashDOT says drivers should expect some minor delays, at least for now. All right, we have an update on the Spokane County election. The elections office dropped its final vote count now that we have that last group of votes. It looks like the Together Spokane initiative is indeed going to pass. We've been tracking this. The Parks levy sits at 55% of voters saying yes, meaning it is passing with a pretty good margin. This vote, though, only needed 50% to pass and has been above that mark since day one. So now let's talk about this Spokane Public Schools bond. Also connected to that, it is passing, ending with almost 62% of voters saying yes. Remember, this bond needed a supermajority of 60% in order to pass. So the county still needs to certify the results, but with both passing, the school district and Parks Department says they will begin the projects as quickly as possible. Dr. Adam Swinyard said in a statement, "This partnership will be a catalyst for the region, and it, quote, sets the course for a really bright future." Here's some of the other big projects Together Spokane is promising: an indoor aquatic pool, several sports complexes, and in general, joint access between many schools and parks. That on top of all the projects the bond and levy each separately fund. The other race that was really close up to this point was the District 1 City Council seat. Before last night's City Council meeting started, Council member Jonathan Bingle congratulated District 1 candidate Sarah Dixit. In the latest vote tally, Dixit pulled further ahead. And in a post on Facebook, Bingle said, quote, "As we move forward, we will work to ensure that every vote was counted and counted legitimately. That is not about changing the outcome. It is about honoring the process." The two candidates are now separated by just 156 votes. And keep in mind, with where we stand at this point, there will not be an automatic recount. For a mandatory recount to happen, the difference between candidates must be less than 0.5%. And Dixit's lead at this point is well over 1%. A recount could still happen, however, if a candidate does ask for it, though historically recounts often don't change the outcome.
And in the last several years, we've had almost no differences whatsoever between the machine count with the main machine count that we certify, and then the recount, whether that recount's done by machine or done by hand, the numbers come out the same. So we've got a really good system.
That was Spokane County Auditor Vicki Dalton. She says the deposit just to request a recount for this race would be more than $3,200. Legislation to reopen the government is now on its way to the House and then the President. The measure cleared the Senate last night. CBS's Natalie Brand has the very latest.
Amid nationwide travel delays, House members are on notice to return to Washington for a vote as early as Wednesday to reopen the government.
You need to begin right now returning to the Hill. We have to do this as quickly as possible.
Right now we're focused on dealing with the bill that's coming over from the Senate to the House, and we're going to fight hard to defeat it.
But with President Trump's backing, the measure is expected to get the House GOP support it needs to pass.
We're going to be opening up our country. It's too bad it was closed, but we'll be opening up our country very quickly.
The Senate-passed compromise package funds the government through January 30th, extends funding for SNAP or food assistance benefits for a full year, and reinstates federal workers who were laid off during the shutdown. 8 members of the Democratic caucus backed the measure, saying the pain of the shutdown was getting to be too much.
I think collectively within the caucus, they realized this has to end.
But the deal does not include an extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits that Democrats had been fighting for, prompting many to call it a setback.
A lot of people, not just Democrats, Republicans are going to be hit harder with these doubling of premiums actually than people in Democratic states. So this is a disaster all across the board, and people are bitterly disappointed.
Some federal workers question what it was all for.
To shut down the government over subsidies that it seems like won't even be a part of the negotiated deal seems to me to be a wasted month.
Furloughed workers could be back on the job as soon as Thursday. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
In a 6-1 vote, the Spokane City Council approved an emergency declaration issued by Mayor Lisa Brown. It is designed to help secure food and shelter for people who are struggling right now. Mayor Brown cited the federal funding risk as the reason for the citywide state of emergency. This ordinance means the city will fund 50 additional shelter beds, speed up eviction prevention contracts, and fund mobile medication-assisted treatment to substitute any dwindling government funds. The only person to vote against the declaration was Jonathan Bingle. He argued it did not do enough, he believes, to help those with food insecurity.
Millions of dollars and up to $30,000 in food. It's not about food. It's about being able for allowing the mayor to get money out to people to do work without going through the contract process. This is just us ceding our authority to the mayor, and there's nothing else about it. It is just that.
Council members who supported the ordinance say the move is more than just SNAP benefits. It also means to help the city provide support services to those experiencing homelessness and needing help. The city did clarify council members can terminate any city contracts if they feel the right services are not being provided.